Welcome back, everyone, to another edition of our YouTube channel. I'm RangeMaster Rob Allen, owner of the RangeMaster Shoulder Therapy Company. And our claim to fame, of course, is that we make shoulder pulleys of many different configurations, but always concerned about the restoration of health to people that have shoulder pain. Today, our special guest is Dr. Greg Judice. Say it for me, Greg.
Judice.
I practiced that a few times to get it right.
Not a problem.
And Greg's coming to us from the St. Louis area, St. Louis, Missouri. I think you're in West County area of St. Louis.
You got it.
I'm mistaken. And you call your practice Judice Sports and Rehab, but I see that your address is stlouispt.com, stlouis.com.
You got it. Yep.
And we'll come back to there because I'm sure some people will want to go there after they hear your story.
Sure.
Which I always find fun as we start our interviews with therapists across the country that are doing or involved in interesting things going on with the practices. And so let's just start out. Tell us a little bit, Greg, if I can call you that.
Absolutely.
Where you went to PT school and when you made your decision to become a PT.
All right. Well, the decision was pretty early, actually. I was a baseball player down south and I could play year round. So unfortunately, playing year round leads to injuries. And so I was in and out of PT a lot from basically 6th grade through the end of high school, trying to get back to pitching, get back to throwing hard like I could as a kid. So I kind of got accustomed to being around the profession. So when it came time to do volunteer hours or to do any sort of shadowing stuff for high school hours, I knew the perfect place to go. And I kind of fell in love with it as a volunteer during high school. So I had kind of made the decision to go to PT school as probably a sophomore in high school, which is probably earlier than most.
Yes.
So when it came to looking for schools, a direct entry program like St. Louis University's was a great option for me. It made sense. I got to shave off a year of school. I didn't have to reapply for grad school. It's a direct entry. You start as a freshman and you're in. You keep your grades up and you get to stay in PT school. So St. Louis University's program is a 6-year doctorate, and I finished that up in 2014.
Wow. So when you say you were down south, where were you?
Baton Rouge, Louisiana is where I grew up.
Ah, okay. So, and were you able to play baseball beyond high school?
I played in an all-star team after high school, but I didn't play at a college level. It was just kind of like a post-high school. Most of the guys that I played with were college bound for baseball. But I was a little bit burnt out with it. And with my shoulder injury, I was never really able to throw like I knew I could if everything was healthy. So yeah, torn labrum that never quite got around to being fully healed.
Well, we're going to be comfortable talking about shoulders together today as we
there you go.
move along. Well, so then did you leave home to go up to St. Louis then?
Exactly. So I'm an only child, so it was a little easier for me to get away. So I left Louisiana and moved up to St. Louis for college, and we've been here ever since. So I met my wife in undergrad, and so we, decided to stay here rather than moving back to either of our respective hometowns, and have made St. Louis our home.
Now your practice, you own the practice. Did you go right into to your own practice coming out of the university, or what was your career path?
Yeah, I wasn't sure if I wanted to start my own. I was kind of under the impression that it was going to be too expensive, or it was not going to be something that I could do right out of school. So my first couple of years right out of school, I was working for a larger corporate physical therapy practice here in St. Louis. And it wasn't long being there that I realized that the corporate PT world and my philosophies don't necessarily mesh. So I started looking for opportunities to start my own practice. And that's, we were kind of talking earlier, you mentioned Jared Carter. I found his information and, listened to his podcast and checked out his website and just learned about what is a out-of-network practice, what is a cash-based physical therapy practice, and just kind of fell in love with the idea. I really liked being independent and being fully autonomous from insurance regulations and limitations and all that. So that was very appealing to me, but I didn't quite feel confident enough yet to do things on my own, because I knew that would be, I don't have any mentors. I don't have anybody that I can go to at the clinic. So I actually went back to school, I guess you call it. I did a residency program for orthopedics. So I did a 1-year ortho residency and finished that up in 2017. And then I started my practice immediately afterwards.
I appreciate the shout out for Dr. Jared Carter, and I think it's drjaredcarter.com.
Yes.
If I'm not mistaken, but sort of in the in the pandemic age right now, I'm guessing you're glad you made that kind of a switch, and why don't we just talk a little bit about cash-based practice that takes a little courage and a bit of a business entrepreneurial mindset.
Definitely.
And so tell us kind of what you went through there. How did you gin up a business side to your practice at that point?
Sure. So, finishing the residency, I had a non-compete with my residency program. So I didn't have anything. I had no clients, no know-how. I didn't grow up in St. Louis. And, some St. Louisans would agree that this can be a very cliquey town. So, if you didn't grow up here, it's a little challenging to get going. But anyway, I started networking very hard. So I joined Chamber of Commerce, joined BNI group, Business Networking International networking group. So I really just jumped headfirst into the networking, introducing myself, meeting new people, just to get to know the people I needed to know. So meeting with gym owners and some doctors, especially the concierge, smaller private practice doctors, yoga studios, gym owners, I may have already said that. But any of the health and wellness practitioners here in St. Louis, I want to know them. Mm-hmm. I seriously set a goal of, I'm going to connect with every single gym owner in St. Louis in the next year, and made a big list, and I did it. And it took that commitment to getting to know everybody that I could to really boost me to a level that I was comfortable with from the get-go, without spending any money, without going into debt, without wasting money on ads that I didn't know how to run myself. So it just kind of took a little bit of courage to jump headfirst into the networking side of things.
Well, you really followed the Jared Carter model there. Did you choose any particular specialty? I mean, coming out of an orthopedic kind of internship idea there, did you focus on orthopedics, or did you narrow it down to baseball or any other high school, kind of anything specific about what you did there?
Right. That's a great question. I honestly, when I finished the residency and started, I kind of thought orthopedics was a specialty. And while it does have the letters behind my name, it's not enough, right? It doesn't sing enough to people for them to even pay attention to what that is. So I did actually decide that shoulders are going to be my specialty. That's what I enjoyed treating the most before I started the residency. My research during the residency was on youth pitching mechanics. My injury was shoulder, so I had a ton of interest there, and that's what I enjoyed treating. So I kind of decided, if 90% of my clients were folks with shoulder issues, I'd be happy to do that all day. So I kind of niched into, I'm the shoulder guy. it's easier to remember that. So when I was contacting all of these gym owners, all these doctors, that's what they remember. They don't remember that I have an OCS or that I went to SLU or my name, but they'll remember the shoulder guy. I know I've got his card somewhere.
Well, that's really interesting. If you're going to go to the gym and then you're going to talk to the owner about shoulder people, you probably encountered some athletes that were doing lifting because we commonly hear about lifting athletes kind of overdoing it and then having trouble rehabbing because they're the no pain, no gain guys and gals, you know. So has that turned into something? And a tag along question, I'm going to imagine that if you help people resolve shoulder pain, they're likely to come back and ask you about other problems they're having. Can you talk about
Absolutely. 100%. So I'm actually a member at a CrossFit gym, and that was a good decision for me because I end up seeing quite a few of the folks from the gym. It's a win-win relationship. I get to have a nice community that I get to be a part of, but they also have someone that they can trust if they do find themselves with an injury. What was the second part of the question? I kind of lost you.
Whether they then migrate to other injuries or other fitness goals.
Absolutely. Yeah. So when I first started, I would say the first 6 to 12 months, 80% of my caseload was shoulders. And now it's probably closer to 50 to 60% because people know that I can treat a spine or I can treat an ankle. Or, if you get good enough results and you get enough Google reviews, people will come for whatever.
Yeah, that's great. And now let's talk about post-op shoulders versus non-operative shoulders. In your environment, you're probably trying to keep people out of surgery.
You got it. I have not seen a single post-op shoulder surgery in probably 3-4 years.
Always that.
And I loved doing that. When I was working at the corporate place, all of our folks were post-op. They had a great relationship with the surgery center right next door. So it was a easy working relationship there. But as soon as I started my own, I don't have those relationships to the surgery centers or the surgeons like I did in the previous practice.
Yeah, very interesting. We see our post-op shoulder patients being 60 to 85 years old, primarily, unless it's a traumatic injury. But we see the non-operative people being in a much younger age group, people who, as you alluded to, want to get back to doing the things they love to do, whether it's tennis or I noticed you had a CrossFit guy on your videos online. Told a good story. Terrible, got hit by a car.
That was a pretty gnarly story there for sure.
Training for a triathlete and made it back, finished.
Absolutely.
I love that film you have of him crossing the finish line 2 hours ahead of schedule. So
heck yes. He was fun to work with, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, it takes an engaged patient. At that point, you have to be able to get that engaged patient. Always our therapists are worried about the cash-based practice. So talk a little bit about your experience when people understand that you're outside or supplemental to their insurance. Which way do you go and that sort of thing?
Yeah, so it's a lot of education, right? And I don't know if this is universal by any means, but in the St. Louis area, most of the corporate practices are seeing 3 to 5 patients per hour. And so a lot of the folks that I get coming into me have actually done PT before. So they're skeptical because they've already done PT and failed. So all they see is PT and they think this isn't going to work for me. And then secondly, this is going to cost how much, right? And insurance doesn't cover any of it. So they come in very skeptical. So we really have to take the time to educate them on what to expect, how we're different, why our approach is so good, right? Our reviews speak for themselves. themselves. Our testimonials speak for themselves. People are happy working with us. So I don't feel bashful about saying, yeah, we charge X, and yeah, we're not in network. It just is what it is. It's a different way of doing things. It's not anything to be weary about or nervous about saying. It's a different way of doing things. So I think the education piece is crucial. If you don't do that, they're just never going to get it. If you know, what did Henry Ford say? If I asked people what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse.
Yes.
He gave them a car, right? So it's just a different way of doing things. People don't know that there are other options to what they're currently getting.
When you talked about seeing patients coming from your CrossFit gym, and you talked about going out to the other gym owners, are referrals your primary source, or now I see you're on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube, I think. So what's your primary driver now for in new patients?
It's definitely referrals from past clients, from current clients. We've got great relationships with about 3 or 4 gyms in the area. And then we've got some decent relationships with probably a dozen. And we're always looking for new connections. So I've got 2 concierge docs that will send folks once a month. And it doesn't take much for my schedule to get fairly full. Because we do a full hour each session, I can't treat 60 people a week, right? I'm kind of tapped out at around 25. So, for me, if I'm able to get 4 new clients a week, I've got a pretty decent schedule. So definitely mostly from referral, but I do also do some Facebook ads that have really been taking this to the next level. So I don't know if I'm allowed to shout him out, but have had some great success with a cash-based physical therapy specific marketing company. So it's been really nice.
Please do. Who are you using?
Yeah, so it's Joey Albritton. He's been fantastic. So
you recall his login, or you?
It's PT Marketing Secrets, and I think it is ptmarketingsecrets.com. I'm not 100% sure on that, but yeah. So Joey has been a great help. We started working with him in February of this year, and we've had a significant uptick in volume, and we actually just hired another therapist last week. So things are going well.
That sounds good. Is that your second therapist, or how many people are with you now?
It's just me and Jen. So it's just the 2 of us as treating therapists. We do have a front desk assistant, Jessica, that helps us with everything. She's fantastic.
Rolling back, when did you rent office space? How did that come together? Because that had to be one of the big first hurdles.
I found an office. It was in an office park. It was a 12 by 15 room. That was it. A 1 room, no reception, no waiting room, no anything. Not in a great area. It was fine. It was fine. It was a nice starting point for $325 a month. I couldn't pass it up. So we started very small, very conservatively. Like I mentioned earlier, I didn't want to take out a bunch of loans and be in a bunch of debt. So we did this, I guess you call it bootstrapped. We just kind of did it with what we had without spending a ton of money from the get-go. But yeah, we've just recently moved into a space that's about 3 times the size of our previous office. So we've got 2 treatment rooms and an office. So you can see my more of a documentation and meeting office here. And then we've got 2 treatment rooms to my left here. So pretty nice little upgrade. We've got a little atrium and water feature out front. I mean, drastic upgrade. So I'm real happy with where we are now. But I hired Jessica, our front desk assistant, last June. And then I hired Dr. Jen just this month. So about a week ago.
Nice. Well, it sounds like it's ticking right along. May I ask you about offers that you make in terms of your Facebook advertising? I know Dr. Carter was advocating a get acquainted session where you basically just gave people a little taste and then
Right.
offered them perhaps a package or some sort of a time frame?
Yeah, so our Facebook ads offer either, depending on which ad, depending on what verbiage they want to use, but it's either a $47 or a $49 consultation. And so those folks will come in for a 40 to 60 minute kind of get to know you evaluation, no treatment, because in Missouri, we do have to have a script to treat. We still do not have direct access. So that has been a little challenging to get around. But again, typically it's just as easy as educating your clients, teaching them how to get a script. It's just a little hurdle, you know, as much as I'd love to have it tomorrow, it's just a little hurdle.
I like that. And then they come in that way.
Exactly. And then after they come in for the eval, then we kind of educate them on the different packages we have and let them make a decision on what makes the most sense for them.
Well, let's talk a little shoulders right now.
Sure.
We came in contact with one another, and I'll do my little ad here. We are encouraging therapists who don't necessarily want to stock inventory of shoulder rehab products to use a new affiliate program that we have. And then we share with you what it would normally cost us to get it into a brick and mortar establishment. But with an affiliate spiff, we give some of that back to you for the referral. So if people want to know more about that, it's at myrangemaster.com, and they can navigate from there. But what are you seeing? We tend to think of shoulder injuries grouping up about 50% around a rotator cuff tear, and not a lot of those are full thickness tears or ruptures. More often than not, it's a partial tear. And I'm assuming you're trying to help recruit some of those other muscles in the shoulder complex to stabilize the shoulder and reduce the pain. But that's my assumption from here. You're working with a different clientele than I normally am talking about. So
Definitely.
give me a little bit of insight on what you're encountering.
Right. I would say the key word is regional interdependence. A lot of the folks that we get come in, they've hurt for 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, and they're finally ready to do something about it. They didn't know that it wasn't okay to hurt when they did lifting or when they were throwing or when they're raking or whatever. And they see something that's like, oh, that speaks to me. Or they see a video of ours on YouTube and they're like, why haven't I done something about this before? So most of the folks that we get are actually technically chronic pain patients, but they may only hurt in their shoulder at that moment. So because they've hurt for so long, they've developed some bad habits. We're treating the neck, we're treating the scapula, we're treating thoracic spine, and we're treating the whole system. It's not just a shoulder issue. 95% of the time we get someone in. Occasionally we'll get someone with the acute partial thickness rotator cuff issue or the acute labral issue. And again, the goal is always for us to help them avoid surgery as long as possible. So those are, I don't know if I answered your question, but I would say most of the time we've got folks that are dealing with more of a chronic issue than I would have ever expected in this role.
So chronic pain, and now in one sense, one might say chronic pain specific to the shoulder area, but you alluded to the fact that maybe these are people that have learned to live with pain and may have issues that crop up in other places then.
Absolutely, yeah. So we kind of use the term learned helplessness or learned pain to an extent. When you wake up every day and you expect it to hurt, you're going to be guarding it. You're going to create some bad habits. You're going to avoid reaching behind your back or over your head. There are certain movements that you'll never try because you assume they're going to hurt, or they hurt yesterday so that you know they're going to hurt today. So that you've kind of learned these bad habits of not quite manifesting your pain, but there is surely a psychological component to the pain. So we will dive into the psychology of pain and educate them on chronic pain consistently. So those are a pretty good population of folks that we work with. And they're fun because they get better, because they really care, right? If they thought that they couldn't get better, they wouldn't come in at all.
No.
So the fact that they believe in themselves enough to show up, they're fun to work with.
That's a great starting point.
Yeah, it's absolutely. So it's a lot of education, a lot of hands-on stuff just to try to get the pain to calm down short term, and then get them moving, get them stronger, and it fixes the problem long term.
Well, I didn't expect to hear you say that you don't have direct access in St. Louis. So my next question may or may not be appropriate. A lot of folks in cash-based practice picked up on the whole telehealth idea particularly during the pandemic, but there were some fairly early folks even before. Rob Jennings, I think, or Rob
Vining, is that it?
Yeah, Rob Vining.
So I took his course as soon as he launched it. I took it and I was like, all right, we gotta have this at least to get us through.
Yeah.
I was lucky. Last early March, I got really busy. So I had maybe 5 or 6 new clients that bought a package the week before we got shut down here in Missouri. Well, at least we had an option for them. We already had a script. We already had everything in place. We already evaluated them in person, which I think is very helpful. So having their trust in us to continue on virtually was huge. Just them giving us a chance. And I told them, give me 3 visits. If you hate it, I'll give you your money back. Let's go for it. Because I knew that it was going to be more than 2 weeks or 6 weeks or whatever we were quoted. You don't just have a partial pandemic for a few weeks. So anyway, it was one of those, we got to give this a try. Otherwise, we're just not going to be able to help people for months. So it was interesting. I think I became a better therapist. I think everybody did. You know, you had to ask different questions. You had to ask them what they're feeling. You can't see it. You couldn't pick up on the body language as easily. So you have to ask different questions, better questions to get to know exactly what's going on. I will say I didn't really enjoy doing the telemedicine. I'm very much a hands-on PT. I like touching it and making sure that it's moving like I want it to. But it did get us through. So we went through about Memorial Day, so end of May, virtually, and then slowly started bringing people back in June.
Are you about 100% back to in person now?
We're definitely 100% back to in person. I think our last telemedicine appointment was probably March of this year. It's been a little bit. So we still offer it. I still have the software ready to roll, but for the most part, people are okay with seeing us because it's one-on-one. You know, there's not like a group of people. There's not a whole treatment room with 8 clients and 2 or 3 therapists or anything like that. You're going to interact with me and maybe my front desk person.
Well, in addition to that, you have published, I went through the one on shoulders, an 8-page ebook on shoulders, and you have that, I think you have at least a half a dozen ebooks out there on different kinds of pain that people might be experiencing. That's a pretty generous offer. And you're not shy about saying, I'd love to come in and have you do an evaluation, but you give people some very meaningful tips in those that could help them sort of determine the source of the problem and the first steps to recovery. Has that method worked for you in terms of drawing people to a more close relationship to start?
You know, I think even just offering it is helpful. I think the fact that people know that you care enough to offer your knowledge for free kind of shows them that you care enough. You have some empathy. You get it, right? Has it been an effective lead generation strategy? Probably not. Just to be perfectly honest, it has not been as effective as I had hoped. But I think we all kind of have to learn what works in our area, what doesn't work in our area. You know, the social media has not worked super great until we started running ads for it. Just organic traffic didn't work great for us. The ebooks didn't work great, but our YouTube is actually working pretty well. For as few and as limited quality as our videos were up until recently, we were still getting a few clients from YouTube, which is surprising. So it's always interesting to see where folks will come from. But I mean, as with anything, if you are measuring it, you know where to spend your time next time.
Yeah. Well, these have been interesting comments that I'm sure our audience is going to find helpful in terms of thinking through the whole solo cash-based practice idea. But if we could just turn the corner for a couple of minutes and maybe talk to the patient that's wondering about their shoulder pain. You just did a video on people that have trouble pain with sleeping. I hear that comment a lot. When I couldn't sleep through the night is when I really decided I had to do something.
Mm-hmm.
Or people who've had a fall and pretty sure they didn't fracture anything, but they know they're walking around with some residual pain, which, you know, from our standpoint could mean potential lockup of a frozen shoulder if they don't keep moving. When a patient gives you a call and says, "Hey, I think I got something wrong with my shoulder," how do you work with them? What kind of questions would you take me through as we start to get them on guiding them through their recovery?
Sure. I mean, as with any history, we want to know how long has it been there? When does it bother you? Biggest things I want to know are what all have you tried? Because if you've tried a ton of different things, I want to be sure that we're doing something a little bit different. If you've tried the medications and you've tried stretching and yoga and you've tried massage and you've tried the chiropractor, you haven't tried everything, right? So I just want to make sure that they know that we're not going to be exactly the same as everything they've already tried. So that would be kind of the biggest thing that I want to get out of that conversation. If they're coming in with something acute, of course, we want to know more specifically, when does it hurt? What specific movements? It just is a different conversation. So our evaluations are drastically different when it's been there for 3 days versus 3 months versus 3 years. But the beauty of this type of practice is we have a full hour to figure it out.
Exactly. You know, I noticed in your work that you're very adamant about the difference in amount of time you're able to spend with the patient. And I'm sure you're getting hands-on to kind of feel the biomechanics as well as taking time to interview. Is that continue to be your primary point of differentiation, particularly if they've been somewhere else before?
I think so. I think it's attention. It's not necessarily the amount of time, but have you given them the attention that they deserve? One thing that we've implemented is an onboarding program to where I have maybe 5 or 6 videos of me explaining what to expect, and here's our facility, and here's how to get in the door. And there's some attention to detail things that I think are kind of missed out, where people are either skeptical or they're unsure about what to expect. And clearing some of those uncertainties with giving them time, giving the attention that they need to understand that you actually care. And I think that's really all it is. I don't think there's a real difference necessarily in an evaluation that takes 20 minutes versus taking an hour, if you know the right questions to ask. But part of my job is to build rapport with people, and it takes time to do that. And I think people appreciate time. You know, we can get done in an hour what you might spend 3 hours doing at a typical practice. You go 3 times a week for your shoulder after a surgery. We can likely get all of that done in an hour if we spend it the right way. So I think it's efficiency, being mindful of what they're experiencing, and giving them the attention that they deserve.
Well, I think that's a great place to plant your flag, frankly, because it can't be a factory. It's got to be an individual treatment plan. Well, there's some material there. You may, in fact, want to use yourself. After we've edited it, you may want to edit it for your own use. But for those people who are patients that see this, let's go through again. Pronounce your name if you would, and
Sure.
how people can get a hold of you.
Yeah, so I am Dr. Greg Judice, owner and physical therapist at Judice Sports Rehab. You can find us online, www.stlouispt.com. That's STLOUISPT.com. What else you want to know?
You're going to help them with their shoulder, but that's not the only thing you do.
That's right.
And for those people who are active and have some pain and want to get back to doing the things they love, this could be your St. Louis solution right here.
Perfect.
Thank you very much for joining us today, Dr. Greg. This has been fun to talk to you. You're my first cash-based practice person that really followed all the steps and made it come to life. I know there are others, but and it's fun that you're a specialist in shoulders for us. And so
there you go. I love it. Yeah. So yeah, if there are therapists that have questions about the cash-based model, I certainly don't mind fielding those questions.
thanks for visiting today. And with that, we'll be out.
Have a good day.
Uh-huh.